Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nalini Nallamalli. I have been working with Veritas for more than 16 years. I have worked on various products like volume manager, clustering, high availability with backup and recovery. I have also worked on various features that integrate these products with cloud.
Hello, everybody. My name is Anindra Banerjee. I am working as a technical director in Veritas, and I'm with Veritas for almost 20 years now. This is my only job so far, and my expertise is completely in the storage domain, starting from the hardware, going to the volume manager, device drivers, and primarily in the file system. In the file system, I have looked into local mounts, clustered file system, distributed file system, so the entire gamut you can think of. And recently, I have developed some interest in the security side for the storage, and hence this idea about how we can have a storage solution to protect against ransomware came into being. So, welcome everybody.
Thanks, Anindra. So today we will be talking about ransomware-proof storage. So ransomware is the fastest growing cybercrime today. So, and almost all the enterprises are suffering with these ransomware attacks. So let's see more about ransomware, how we can protect our storage from ransomware in this session. Yeah. So in this session, we are going to talk about what is ransomware, how ransomware enters into the system, and how it spreads across the systems in the business. And then we will see what is the need to protect from ransomware and how to protect from the ransomware and some of the best practices that can be followed. And then we will summarize the session. Please take a moment to rate this session. Your feedback matters to us. Thanks. So let's start with the introduction of ransomware. So what is ransomware? It is a malware software, we can say, that once enters into the system, it tries to block the access to the system, and then the attacker generally asks to pay the ransom to gain the access to the system. So in most cases, the access to the system is blocked either by changing settings of the system or by encrypting the data in the system. So even before encrypting the data, many times the attacker will actually copies the sensitive data from these systems, and then they ask for the ransom. If we don't pay the ransom to those attackers, they will threaten us that either they will publish this sensitive data into the public sites or they will destroy the data. So there is no way for us to get the data back. That is how it works. And most of the times the payment is done in a way that it is very difficult to track or trace those attackers, right? So they generally use the uh, options like Bitcoin, in which case it is very difficult to trace those attackers. Right? So how does this ransomware even enters into the system? Let's see. I mean, we have just talked about what is this ransomware, right? So, but how it enters into the system, right? In the first place. So most of the times it enters to the spear phishing emails. This is the major cause where if we clicks on any link in our email or if we open any attachment to those phishing emails, the ransomware enters into our system. And it could even enter through remote desktop protocol. And if the passwords are weak, they can just predict the password, right? And if we install any software that is actually infect, and if we connect any external storage device which has malicious software, even that could infect our system, right? And if we open any compromised websites, or in case if we are using any public cloud instances, and if we don't block the ports, right? When any additional ports, the attacker can actually access to these public cloud instances and the ransomware can enter into the system, right? Once ransomware enters into the system, it can lock access to the computer itself, or it will lock access to the data and files stored inside the computer. So in most of the cases, the data and files are actually encrypted, and once the data is encrypted, that is attached to this device, in most of the cases, it actually spreads into the attached devices, externally connected devices, and even can spread to other computers across networks. Who is the target? The ransomware actually started with targeting individuals. So after that, it has changed to target to the organizations actually. So every organization is a target to ransomware, regardless of its size, sector, and geography. Right? So there was a time where there were so many ransomware attacks, especially on the targeting educational institutes and financial institutes, government or public sectors. Right? They will have lots of sensitive data, so the attackers can say that okay, they can easily steal the information, and then they say that if you don't pay the ransom, we will simply publish the data. Right? That's where they actually target the public sectors, financial institutes, and any type of businesses are targeted by the ransomware. Even hospitals and healthcare organizations are a target because the hospitals need immediate customer data records. That's where they generally ready to pay the ransom, right? So that's where they target even the hospitals and healthcare organizations. There is no specific exception. Uh, these days, the attackers actually targets everybody and every organization, whether they are enterprises, mid-market, or small market organizations. So before jumping into ransomware protection, how to protect our storage from ransomware, let's look at some of the statistics, history of ransomware, and some of the facts. Right. So first malware attack happened actually in 1989. After that, they are not that much popular, but from 2005 onwards, these ransomware attacks have become very popular and prominent. So we have got more sophisticated encryption algorithms. So initially only symmetric key algorithms were available where they are very easy to crack, right? The key sizes were increasing over the period, and we have got asymmetric key algorithms. So which makes it very difficult to crack the decryption key. So that's where they become more prominent. And starting from 2012, the use of ransomware scams have grown like anything. So if we see the statistics, so it is expected that by end of 2021, on every 11 seconds, there will be a ransomware attack. So from this number, we can see how fast the ransomware attacks are growing, right? So that is where we need to invest in solutions to these ransomware attacks. And these are 57 times more than it was in 2015. So let's look at what is this SEC 17A regulation, right? It is a regulation issued by US Securities Exchange Commission. So it actually outlines how to retain the data, how to keep the records, any electronic records, how many years to maintain. So this regulation actually mentions all those details. So according to these rules, the records must be retained and indexed in indelible media, which means we should not delete the records from the media with immediate accessibility for a period of 2 years. So we should be able to access the data for a period of 2 years, and they should be immediately accessible. And we should retain the data for a period of 6 years on a non-immediatable access data. And we should also keep the duplicate records at the same time, like for for maximum of 6 years, and those records should be available at offsite location. So till now we have discussed about what is ransomware, how it works, right, and how it can spread across the systems in a business, how it can bring our business down, right, and what is SEC regulation. and who are the targets, right? So let's go to ransomware protection, right? So before even moving into uh, the ransomware protection, right? How to protect our business or individuals from this ransomware attack. Let's see why this ransomware protection is important to us. Right? So one of the primary factor is the downtime. So if there is a ransomware attack and if all our systems in our business goes down, in what time I can bring my entire system infrastructure up and running? How in what time I can bring all my missions up and running? How can I make in what time I can make my data available, right? So if this is what downtime talks about. And as per the research, it is actually 19 days. All most of the businesses are taking actually 19 days to get their systems, infrastructure, data back, even though they have some of the mechanisms to restore the data, which is very huge, right? So if we have 19 days of downtime, it actually impacts our business. And if any organization actually gets attacked with ransomware, they will have two options if they don't have proper recovery mechanisms, right? So one is either pay them the money, or another option is if we are if we have the recovery mechanism, we can recover the data, right? So if we choose the pay option, it is like we are actually fueling those criminals, right? So once we pay the ransom to those criminals, cyber criminals, they will get energized and they feel that, okay, I can do more attacks and I can earn more money. So that is how paying is not actually a recommended option. Always better to have a protection plan in place, right? So that's where it is good to have a protection plan. And in fact, once any business is affected with ransomware, it actually damages the reputation of the company, right? So we ultimately lose the customers if we are affected with ransomware, and there will be legal implications because there could be data loss, and it might end up with the legal implications, and ultimately we will lose the data. So it could be the customer data in case of medical, so we might lose the customer records, right? History of the customer data, so which is very valuable and important. It's not only about the loss of money, loss of, legal implication and other factors, loss of customers and all. If we see the statistics of the previous ransomware attacks, so those who choose to pay ransom, right? We feel that, okay, let's pay the ransom by some mean and then get the data back. But if we see the statistics, it is actually incurs you double the cost if we choose to pay the ransom than not paying the ransom and have another mechanisms to recover the data, like backups or any other mechanism. So other important and uh, interesting fact is that, so even though we pay ransom, it is not 100% guaranteed that they actually return us the data, or like if they have encrypted the data, they will give us a decryption key. So it is not 100% guaranteed. And in some, there are cases where the attacker has not given them the decryption key or written back access to the data, even though they have got the ransom that they have asked. So that is the reason why we should, all the businesses should have a proper protection plan to protect the data and infrastructure from ransomware, right? So let's just see, how we can have a protection of how to protect the data from these ransomware attacks. So there are three stages of defense against any malicious activity. So first thing is the prevention. So the prevention is a measure that we take to keep the ransomware out of the environment. So these methods will make sure that even there are very less chances of any ransomware attack or any malicious activity to enter into our environment and destroy our data or make our data inaccessible. So next thing is a detection mechanism. If we can't prevent ransomware from entering the environment, we should have proper detection mechanisms in place in our environment that once we can immediately detect that, okay, there is some malicious activity going on. And if we can detect it as early as possible, we can at least stop spreading the activity across the other systems, and we can limit the scope of the missions that are affected, and we can even limit the data loss, right? But all these prevention and detection mechanisms doesn't work in any case. We should have a recovery plan in place. So that is where this third defense step talks about, is a recovery, which means that if our prevention techniques and detection technique, prevention technique doesn't work, and the detection detects that there is a malicious activity already enters into the environment, how fast we can recover the data, how we can recover the data and infrastructure as quickly as possible. So that is what this recovery talks about. So in this session, we will discuss about how we can prevent ransomware from entering the environment, what mechanisms we can use to detect in case if ransomware enters the environment, and similarly, how we can recover the data if our environment gets affected with ransomware. Right. So first thing is the prevention. So first thing we need to have is, like, we should have proper softwares installed, security tools installed in all our systems, and they should be up to date. Like we should have security tools watching for phishing emails, malwares, any downloads that, like any attachment downloads that are happening in the system. So these tools should be able to scan and detect that there is some suspicious software that gets downloaded, or any phishing email that has come. So these tools should be able to detect those and prevent us from ransomware to enter the system. So another important thing is to have secure authentication, right? If we have weak password, or if any user account is actually uh, gained by the attacker, having multi-factor authentication actually prevents us from getting the access into the system. And next is the RBAC control. So it is role-based access control. Each user account should have a role assigned to them, and as per the role that they are assigned, they should be able to access only specific services, specific ports, and specific processes. So there should be a control of which user can access what process, and what storage they can access, what data they can access, what folders they can access. So we should have proper RBAC assigned to each and every user in the organization. So similarly, if in case we are we generally need to take the backup to restore our data in case there is any issue with the primary copy, right? So we should actually validate the data during the backup. So it could happen that the backup data itself is actually infected, right? So there is no use if we end up restoring the data uh, from those backups which are already infected, right? So that's where backup data verification is very important, so that we can avoid ransomware entering into the system at the very preliminary stages itself. We should harden our hardware and software, right? Tightly limit data access to only those programs that need access, right? So if I have some application running and that application needs to write its data to a folder, make sure that only that application will get access to those folders and those storage locations, that no other program can actually access that storage path. So that is how, by limiting the control access, we can actually reduce a scope for a ransomware attack to encrypt our data, or to gain the access to read our data, right? So even though we gave limited access to those programs, it could even happen that the malicious software, uh, malicious program can get installed. They could even replace the original program with the malicious program, and now those applications might start actually encrypting the data on the system, right? So that's where we need additional mechanism where we need to lock down the application binaries, right? So no user should be able to lock down or change these binaries or any configuration settings. So that's how, even though we have control at program, it is possible that they could replace the program and then encrypt the data. So that's why we need to lock down the application binaries. And data encryption is very important, especially in cases where we have a sensitive data. The attacker can steal the data and they can threaten us to publish this sensitive data, right? So if we have encryption everywhere, starting from the client, whether the data is in transit or whether data is at rest, having encryption at every stage ensures that even though the attacker steals the data, they can't they can't actually derive the data, sensitive data from this information, because this is encrypted. So that's where it will prevent us from some sorts of ransomware attacks. Having security awareness training is very important factor, right? All employees should be given with the proper security awareness training, that they will not click on any suspicious emails or any suspicious links, right? And immutable storage, which is very important. So what is this immutability talks about, right? So immutability means that once the data is written, it cannot be deleted or altered. So let's say if it is a file, so once I copy the file, nobody can actually delete this file or can rename or alter the contents of this file till a predefined length of the time, or it could be even forever, right? So this time period is called a retention period. So there are many storage products that gives this warm capability, which is called write once, read many. Once data is written, we can only read the data till the retention period, till the specified retention period. Right. So at Veritas, we have various products that provide this warm capability. So at Veritas file system, we can specify warm capability, we can enable warm capability, and specify the retention period at the file level. That's how we can actually protect our primary storage itself. And we also have advanced product like net backup, where we can the backups that are getting stored, we can specify the retention period on those backups, and we can even enable warm capability on those backups. So even though we have this immutable storage, right, another important factor is a secure clock. So let's assume that we have specified a retention period of 6 years on a file, right? And let's assume that we are November 2020, and so the retention period of 6 years comes to uh, 2026 November, some date, right? But if some attacker comes and tamper the system clock, right? So somebody can log into the system and tamper the clock from 2020 to, let's say, 2025 or 2024, right? So it ultimately, which means that the file is going to remain in the system only for 1 or 2 years, right? So this is very easy way of attacking and deleting the data. So that's where we need to have a secure clock which cannot be tampered by any individuals, and this clock cannot be manipulated by any individuals. And that is where the warm capability also needs a secure or compliance clock along with it, so that data will be retained, and the clock cannot be. So even though we have many prevention mechanisms in place, we can't avoid completely the ransomware entering from system, right? I mean, so any internal employee himself could do some loss of data or anything, right? So that's where we need detection mechanisms. So by any chance, if ransomware enters the system, we need to able to detect that okay, ransomware has been entered into the system. So as soon as we detect, we can take proper precaution methods to recover our data, and we can limit it from spreading to other systems in the business. So few of the techniques that we can use to detect is that use the heuristics, like if the encryption is increased, like there are spikes in encryption, which we can think like, okay, some suspicious activity is going on, there is lots of encryption happening in the system, right? There are lots of file rename operations going on in the system. So there is a type of ransomware attack which actually doesn't encrypt the data. It actually hides the files in the same storage, but it actually renames the files or changes the file metadata. So that is why catching these file rename operations is also very important thing. And we should have a detection tools like antivirus, intrusion detection system in place, that if there is any virus enters into the system, we can detect those viruses. And audit logs, uh, if if we have a worm enabled storage and anybody attempts to modify or delete these worm files, we can immediately log those activities in these audit logs, right? So any suspicious activity we think that is happening in the system can be captured and stored in these audit logs for so these records can be later on looked at and then find that okay, some suspicious activity has happened, right? And so what can happen is that these logs itself can be tampered and somebody can actually destroy or modify the content of these audit logs itself. So that's where we need to make sure that the audit logs itself are tamper proof, that nobody can modify or delete these audit logs. We should protect the audit logs themselves. And other thing is the alerting. So when, let's say if the backup size has changed a lot, or if we see that the data change rate is too much, so there uh, we might suspect that there is some suspicious activity. Let's say daily it used to be like 10% data change rate, and suddenly it has increased to 50% or even more. So then we can assume that okay, somebody might have encrypted my data. That's where the change rate has grown a lot, right? So that's where alerting on backup size change is very important. And any anonymous application or compromised account trying to access some data, or suddenly there is a huge increase in the data access pattern. So it is very important to look at that. So similarly, backup environment monitoring, right? As we discussed, it could happen that uh, so once ransomware enters into the system, it can even spread in through the network into other systems, right? It could even enter into our backup servers and starts uh, encrypting our even the backup data, right? So that's where we need to monitor the backups regularly, ensure that all the data, all the backups that are stored are not, they don't have any malicious software, and they are not encrypted, and they are not corrupted. So we need to validate the backups regularly. And infrastructure monitoring. So suddenly, if any of our missions are suddenly going down, or like storage getting disconnected, or any major changes in the infrastructure, so we should monitor those things. And so we should also monitor user anomalies, any malware extensions, and network port monitoring is very important, that we should monitor any anonymous user or application accessing our network port, any data coming through these network ports. Like we discussed, any file change, file size change, or backup duration changes, like suddenly backup size has grown, which could be indication that okay, we are backing up lots of data, and that could give us a hint that okay, some suspicious activity is actually going in the system. So these are various detection mechanisms which we can have in place to make sure that we are actually we actually detect in case if there is any malicious activity or malicious software enters our environment. So there is no solution that is 100% proof that it will completely uh, stop and ransomware getting entered into our system, right? I mean, so that's where we need some of the recovery mechanisms, right? So that is where recovery readiness comes into picture. So in case if the detection mechanism detects that some ransomware has already entered into our system, we should be ready with our recovery mechanisms that we can immediately recover those systems, we can remove the infection, and we can get the data back, right? So that's where this recovery readiness is very important. The first thing is 3 to 1 rule to safeguard the data. So the first thing that comes to our mind to recover the data is using any backup and recovery solution using which we can actually recover the data, right? That's where the backups are very important to recover the data in case our primary copy goes down or gets encrypted or become inaccessible, right? So what this 3 to 1 rule talks about is that always maintain 3 copies of any important data. So one is the primary data where applications are writing to, and always keep 2 additional backup copies. So one primary and 2 backup copies. Altogether, we always need to maintain 3 copies of data, and we need to keep these copies of data on different medias. And the third thing is that always keep one copy on an offsite media. This third copy is actually outside your business facility. Other point is always keep these backups stored on an air gap storage. So what it means is that make sure that there is no network connectivity or any electric path to the storage where we have stored this backup copy. Like tape is one of the best example to say, where once we store the backups on a tape, we actually disconnect them from the system and store them at a different place, right? So that it means that we are actually storing data on a air gap storage. And we should always have disaster recovery orchestration ready, like regularly test the disaster recovery plan. So try to run these disaster recovery plan even before there is a ransomware attack, so that we know that okay, how much time we are taking to recover my entire environment in case if there is a ransomware attack. And also make sure that our critical systems are getting backed up regularly, right? I mean, in case there is any failure to take backup of our critical system, make sure that we have products which will notify us that okay, your critical system backup has failed, right? Once we have ready with this recovery, so at any time if there is a ransomware attack and our entire infrastructure goes down, we'll be able to recover the data, right? So the first thing should be okay, identify which systems are infected, right? And isolate those systems from the other systems which are not yet infected, right? So that is where the detection techniques actually helps to see, okay, the out of the entire your 100 missions, 50 systems are already infected and 50 are not infected possibly, right? So once we detect that which systems are infected, we can isolate them, and then we can clean the infected data, and then we can recover the data, get the data back using some of the recovery tools, right? So the first thing is that restore the data from the secondary storage or LTR copy that we already have. And so the important thing, as we discussed before also, that the data on the backup server can also get infected, right? It could be during backup, like whatever data we are backing up, that itself can have some malicious program, which we can avoid by having proper scanning during backup, right? So even if we scan during backup, it could happen that my backup server itself is affected, right? So that's where even during recovery, scanning the data is very important. And we should also be make sure that whatever way we restore the data, that is very quick and very simple. So if we have very complex restore process in place, it takes time to restore all the data, right? So that's where these restore mechanism should be very simple and as much as automated, and we should be able to orchestrate the restoration of entire systems. So these are the some of the steps that we can use to protect, similar to detect or to recover the data in case there is any ransomware attack in the system or in the organization. So we have discussed what is ransomware, how it works, how to protect from the ransomware. So let's see some of the best practices that can be followed, right? Start with the assumption that we'll be hit, right? So if we think that, okay, there are no chances that my organization will be hit with ransomware, then we generally don't follow all the security measures, and there are higher chances that we can get hit with ransomware, right? So always start with assumption that you'll be hit with the ransomware attack, right? So that we are more and more careful now. So always make sure that we protect the data wherever it is held, whether my data is on-prem, whether I have my applications and data running in the cloud, whether my applications are in a public cloud or private cloud, right? So we have to make sure that the data is always protected, and we are always taking backup of the data to a air gap location, and make sure that we always keep our operating system, software, and applications up to date, all the security patches installed, and we give limited control to each application and user. So all the applications and users have limited access to each and every folder or storage that they need to, right? So if application need access to a storage location, only give access to that application. By following these best practices, we can reduce the amount of ransomware attacks. So let's summarize what we have discussed in last few minutes, right? So we have discussed what is ransomware, how it works, and who are the targets of the ransomware, right? And once it enters the system, how it spreads and how it can bring our business down, right? What is the impact of the ransomware if we don't have any proper mechanisms? And similarly, we have discussed about 617A4F regulation. So it mainly talks about how many years to keep the data, and whether to keep on a primary copy or whether to keep secondary copy, right? This regulation talks about how many years to retain the data. So at the same time, we have discussed about various mechanisms to protect from our environment, from our infrastructure and data from ransomware. So how we have discussed what are the different prevention mechanisms, right? Like having proper security tools installed, having scanning the backups regularly, and have using the RBAC controls, we can prevent our ransomware from attacking the system. So we have also discussed about some of the detection mechanisms, like if there are so many file renames, suddenly there is a spike in encryption, or some user is accessing too much of file suddenly. So these are the different ways we can detect that there is some suspicious activity going on in the system. We have also discussed about the recovery mechanism. So in case we can't prevent ransomware from entering the system, and our detection mechanism detects that there is some suspicious activity or ransomware attack already happened. So how to recover the data that is already infected. Right? We have also discussed about the best practices to be followed. So these are some of the references we have used. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the session.